There's a lot of mystics on the internet. Shout out and much love, you crazy fools, that could use dusting off a textbook or two, warmly, without judgment. And secondarily, there are certainly a lot of scholars in academia who would be well served by eating a mushroom. So I'm trying to bridge those two worlds. I'm Bob Peck, and this is Karmic Relief.
My background is in documentary film and comparative religion. I wrote a book called Original Sin is a Lie, How Spirituality Defies Dogma and Reveals Our True Self.
It's an interview show where I talk to spiritual teachers, activists, scholars, people that live within these traditions and also appreciate the overlap. What happens when you start to get activated internally, that makes you activated in a compassionate way in the world. I'm thrilled to be talking to fantastic, inspiring human beings. I have to do much less work, which is nice because I'm just asking them questions about their story. It's a life hack.
Hi.
I hope you'll enjoy these explorations, these really excavations, in the ones I've filmed so far. They've all been really beautiful and deep and lighthearted. So please enjoy Karmic Relief. I'm Bob Peck. I wrote Original Sin is a Lie, and now I'm asking a bunch of questions to intelligent, compassionate humans.
I met the brilliant, creative force of nature, Laurén Janelle Green, on TikTok back in 22. We both showed up on each other's For You pages, and a few book swaps and philosophical coffees later, we've become good pals. Very humbly, my book helped her out, and pretty much everything she puts out on the internet helps me out. So it was a real joy to interview her. She has an amazing story, and hilarious, profound insights. I hope you enjoy our conversation on spirituality, New Age, reincarnation, and the subtleties of success in the dream of Maya. You are an orb pretending to be human.
Yes. Aren't we all, though? Aren't we all?
It's not just you.
It's not just me.
It really is all of us.
It's all of us.
You're a spiritual mentor. You're a mirror to creatives. You work on alchemy via astrology and word spells. You have Laurén Juniper, which is a retail brand. You have a Cosmic Baddie program. You do consultations, readings, coaching, products, a community. How do you have time? How are you even here right now?
I don't. I don't. Lots of caffeine. Lots of meditation.
Yeah.
But I love it. I feel really thankful. I feel like it's the first time in my life where I'm like, no, but I love this shit, like excited to wake up and then like working late and then having ideas in the middle of the night. And so it's the first time I feel so aligned with what I'm doing and like, yes, no, this is it, and that's a blessing for sure.
It sounds like it's possible.
It's fucking possible for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea, is that, you kind of know my story, like growing up in a really conservative, fundamentalist military family where like creativity was not encouraged and it was always my natural inclination. But, we grew up with the struggling artist narrative and all of that. And so for me kind of deciding to take a leap and be like, I'm going to figure this shit out. It wasn't easy the whole time. I was definitely like DoorDash and pizzas at one point, really struggling like, okay, God, is it possible? Is it actually
Started
possible?
from the bottom, now I'm here.
Literally, yeah.
Let's go back to your background, actually, because what I know about you, we're friends. We're both creatives. We met through the World Wide Web of just making similar, basically TikToks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of our friends are kind of on Instagram nowadays, but we're like TikTok OGs
babies.
a little bit. Yeah, and I love your work. We'll talk more about your creative kind of genres that you exist in. But before we do that, you responded to my book, Original Sin is a Lie, because you just mentioned you grew up with a fundamentalist Christian background. Your parents are still practicing Christian.
Very much so. Very much so.
And that influenced your early years.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as young as I can remember, you know, like a lot of us just growing up in the church, and that's what you do. You know, you wake up on Sunday, you go to Sunday school, Wednesday, you go back to church, and like a lot of it just never sat right with me. And I remember being young and asking my dad, like, well, what about like Buddha and, you know, like these, you know, peaceful
He seems
people.
chill.
He seems cool. My dad's like, no, he's in hell. I'm like, what? You know, it's just when you logically, as a child, it just does not resonate, you know, and I had all these questions. And even up till college, you know, when I first started having my spiritual awakening, like around 2011, I really battled. And just that fear of like, am I going to hell? Am I going to hell for like everything that feels so right and natural to me, you know? And that's a heavy part of it, you know, that inherent shame and that guilt and being raised in that and being raised in a fear-based, a lack-based mentality. And now so much of my work has been kind of, you know, rebelling against that, and really believing in that. And my faith has still been tested in that, you know, like I said, like even deciding to pursue my spiritual entrepreneurship and having days when it didn't look like it was going to work out, and be like, oh, maybe this is because I am a sinner. God wants me back.
Bubbles up every once in a while.
It's deep. It goes really deep when you're really raised in that. And to this day, it's something, as you know, I'm navigating with my family, and I'm dropping like tidbits here and there, and they pick up what they can. But it's also,
are they going to listen to this?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe.
Should they?
It's up to the universe, I guess.
Who knows? Maybe. It could be nice.
Maybe this is the big reveal.
Maybe. I'm trying to stop being so...
I'm a mystic, Mom.
You mean a demon worshiper? You know, yeah.
I mean, it's what you're talking about. You know, I've met a lot of people over the last couple of years now that did grow up with that belief that if they do or think or say or just behave in the wrong way, they're going to burn forever.
Absolutely.
And that is not good for your mental health. Read my book. I talk about how hell is a creation of later church fathers and the gospel writers, and its Hellenistic influences from Plato and Egyptian religions. Jesus wasn't condemning people to hell like American churchianity likes to do. And it's very liberating for people. I mean, honestly, if that's all we did for the next 2 decades is just tell people, hey, you're not going to hell, like it would be a worthwhile endeavor. I
think what's so problematic about it is that it teaches people to not trust themselves. And that's where all of my, you know, problems really stemmed from, and where I felt so lost. And a problem I see with a lot of the people I work with is because we don't know how to trust our inner being. We don't know how to even connect with our inner being. We're taught, you know, there's this big...
Don't listen to it.
Don't listen to it.
Yeah.
And that's what creates so much more contrast in our life than we even have to experience, you know? And I think too, just having the understanding that, yes, this is an illusion. Yes, there is contrast, but there's ways where it doesn't have to be so harsh. When you develop a connection with your inner being, when you understand there's a life force within you that you can trust, that you can develop a relationship with, that can become your compass in life. And that's sort of my biggest thing, especially with creatives and just for anyone in general. But as creatives, knowing your biggest tool is your life force energy, you know? And for me, that was really life-changing, and understanding that, you know, God is within, which in spirituality, the spiritual community, we know that. It's so obvious.
It's right there in the middle of the New Testament, too. Luke 17:21 is the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Right.
But they don't, that one, it's only the mystics like that one, and the Buddhist monks and the Hindu swamis, you know, that one doesn't get shared as much on Sunday, it seems like.
Yeah.
Not that I'm there.
Yeah, it turns
to
into
cross-reference that.
And a comment I get a lot on my stuff, like, you can say these affirmations all you want, but Jesus is the only way. And I say, well, Christ is within. You can do anything. People don't like that. It's like, no, 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 no. Yeah.
Right. And, John 14:6 is that verse, actually. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, which I also write about in my book. This isn't going to be just a commercial for my book, hopefully. But, it's because you and I are working kind of I'd say both like the people who enjoy what we do and the people who don't enjoy what we do. We have a lot of overlap with that. And you're right. It's, I've come into a level, and we've talked a lot about this in terms of like acceptance.
Yeah.
Like it can be alluring to want to go tit for tat in the Instagram replies.
Absolutely.
And it's really not that helpful. I mean, the way I try to look at it is like, I'm not going to convince or persuade anybody who's saying, read Ephesians on my Instagram comments. I'm not for them.
Right.
My response, if I do, is for anybody else that stumbles upon this content and this interaction, and what I try to do is I just try to embody a sense of the Christ-like attitude as best I can. Unless if I'm drinking, then I'm going to say, Monica, don't.
No, you're so good at that. I admire you for that. Because, my ass, I'm like, you're blocked. Look. I don't
Well, that's also a choice too.
Yeah, I don't have because for me, once I engage with the person I am, that shit eats me up. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'll be up thinking about like, oh my God, because it's triggering so much.
It's a little shadow work even, this is funny that we're talking about comments. My comments that bug me, like the ones that are like I laugh at are the ones that are like, Jesus is Lord, and it's like misspelled, I'm like, I know he's really great. Okay. I really like Jesus a lot.
Yeah, we love
I've read 30 books on the guy, big fan. But it's the ones that are like very intellectual. Those are the ones that get me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like kind of coming back to like shadow work and like the psychology of it. Like I was talking to Michael Phillip about that, about like, if somebody is very articulate in their way of like taking me down or calling me like stupid, like that does trigger me. And I'm like, well, and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Then I'm noticing that gets me. And so why does that bother me and not the other thing,
It's kind of funny. I've had a few past life readings, and one of them, he was like, I was telling him how I was just so triggered by the fundamentalists and like, oh my gosh, driving me crazy, like having to defend this and feeling misunderstood and yada, yada, yada. He taps in, he's like, it's kind of, I'm actually picking up that you were a pastor in a past life. Yeah. And that's kind of why you're, being so triggered. And so now, even today, I took a walk with, my partner Carson, and there was a guy outside preaching and, kind of knowing like, oh, wow, I've had a past life, dude. And I'm like, he's on his way. Everyone's on their way, we've been everything.
Absolutely.
And so now when I kind of have those interactions, I'm like, well, I guess that was me, and who knows, maybe me next life. Hopefully not.
Right. Hopefully there's a general upward towards love and unity and oneness, but it seems like it goes up and down. It seems like it spirals up and spirals down for a few eons. And
well, you have to be careful, because what you spend so much time hating, like the soul has time. Easily come back next life as that person, because your soul's like, what would it actually be like to be that person and fully embody that and have that perspective, added to my repertoire in a sense.
And so the focus of your consciousness that fixates, because, I think you and I have talked about it, creator, right? There's a great word for God. And if we're children of the creator, guess what we can do? We have a creative characteristic. It's in our DNA. Maybe that's the wrong term, but that's the idea.
That is the idea. Absolutely. And that's, one of my biggest pillars, and a lot of our peers talk about this as well, but to be human is to create. And so for me, it's like, okay, so what reality then do I want to create for myself? And that can be really empowering, instead of just having life come at me. and just being here and letting it come at me and
being reactive.
Reactive to that. Instead, how can I be proactive? And also, though, from a place of like consciously co-creating with the divine, you know, because our lower egoic minds can only see so much and only do so much. You know, lately that's been a big thing for me. Just really like, okay, I'm setting my intentions, but I'm also going to really surrender and see how the divine can kind of help me out here and, you know,
That's
just
beautiful.
let go of the reins a little bit. It takes a lot of pressure off.
Jesus, take the wheel a little bit.
Please.
I kind of become full circle now with some of this. Like, I'm like, Lord, use me.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm like, I sound like somebody knocking on the door
For sure.
with a Bible, but and maybe I am in some way.
Yeah.
I'm knocking on your algorithm with this Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
Before we go into that, because I really want to, I think the mystic surrender piece is really important, and it's a big reason we're friends and kind of collaborators in that sense. Zoom out with me. So you went to Baylor University. You traveled all over.
Yeah.
With military dad.
Right. Growing up. Mm-hmm.
And Baylor University is a Baptist college in Texas.
Hell yeah. Very Baptist, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Out on the range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're reading spiritual books then, right? I mean, that's kind of the timeline. Like, what are some of the early influences? Because I know your current influences.
Yeah, no, Thich Nhat Hanh has, you know, that's my dude. Goat of
He
all
really
time.
is. Yeah,
you know,
for
that's
sure.
my dude. It was an interesting time being at Baylor because I was still, to be honest, probably still identifying as Christian the first 2 years, like 2010, 2012, but I was tripping out on mushrooms, acid, and I'm, you know, being like questioning with all these
Feeling the sacred heart beating throughout the universe.
Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
I think I've told you this, you know, 2011, I started seeing 1111 everywhere and it was freaking me out. I actually really thought I was going crazy. I was like, y'all, it's everywhere. Like, it's actually following me. And, you know, this is like 10 years plus ago, you know, which isn't that long, but there was nothing on the internet. You know, today, the angel numbers and all that is such a trend in a sense. But back then, there wasn't shit on the internet. And I was like, what is going on? You know?
Yeah.
But I had discovered Thich Nhat Hanh. I discovered The Secret. It was the first time I discovered Law of Attraction. And simultaneously, I'm tripping out every weekend with my best friend. And we were having these really deep spiritual moments together. And then she had passed away suddenly. And then that just forced me even deeper down this like existential crisis that I was having. And, you know, I guess you could say that was really my first dark night of the soul, and just went into a really deep depression. And I felt so connected to like the magic and of the cosmos and all of that. But I also felt so lost and so confused because, you know, I'm still having this massive Christian influence in my life and feeling like, okay, well, what if all of this is demonic? All those things that I saw, all those experiences that I had is probably all demonic, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to cope. And so I was doing all kinds of drugs, you know, everything you can think of. I could put up my nose. I was putting up my nose just to get through the day. And that depression went on for a while. You know, I graduated and I just wanted to leave America. And so I went to China, was teaching English there for a little bit.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was teaching English for a year, and then I ended up changing jobs. This like small little Chinese startup company had found me, and they wanted someone who spoke English and could also understand Chinese and help them translate stuff. So then I was working with them. Long story short, through all of that, I somehow crawled my way out of that depression by just simply feeling ambitious in life. But yeah, it was just that first dark night of the soul where you're just like questioning everything. And it's interesting now because so many people are like going through that experience now.
There's a lot of like recent post-Christians.
Yeah, absolutely.
That are like, wait a second.
Yeah. And even then I still couldn't fully wrap my mind around, and honestly, probably just because I didn't have like the resources, you know, having your book back then would have been wonders for me, because I was just wandering. And eventually what it came to be was just, I just knew that feeling within me. My intuition was so overpowering, and the experiences I was having within meditation and in prayer even was just so overpowering that I knew, no, this is actually what it is like to be connected to the divine. This is the truth of that. And it took me a long time to reconcile that. And because I wasn't taught what the divine is, I wasn't taught what spirit really is. And it took me a long time to be like, wait, no, but I'm not sinning. This is actually, you know, what it's like to have a really great connection with something greater than me. That's also me, you know.
That's so beautiful. That really touched my heart the way you put that, because it's in you.
Yeah.
It's in both of us. It's in the guy who helped us with the audio.
Right.
It's in you listening, you know, and you don't need to be taught, you know, it can help. And thank God for, you know, my homies are the mystics,
absolutely.
you know, the men and women throughout history who broke the veil. And very often they didn't have, you know, sometimes they do. Sometimes there's a guru figure or, you know, a saint or something, but you don't need any of that. You just have that your own intuitive capacity that you've discovered that crumbled slowly over time, your doubt.
Right. And that's exactly what the path is. That's exactly what the spiritual awakening is. And again, like I said, it's just learning to trust yourself. And that's where creativity can be really great, because, you know, I really believe your creativity and your intuition is linked. They work together when you, and a lot of times it's like, I tell people I work with, they're like, well, I don't know, is this my intuition or if it's not? And like, well, why don't you just like go do something creative, like watercolor, write a poem, you know, because now you can start developing a connection with your inner being, you know, with the force within you. And then you just strengthen that muscle, and you'll start to realize when the external bullshit is bullshit.
That's really good advice. You should coach people creatively. Oh, wait, you do this
maybe
for a living.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're having like a indecisive moment, or not sure of like if you're being led in the right way or something, and something, you know, the message is having trouble coming through, do something creative that's almost removed from that issue. Okay.
I think also too, though, that's like one tool, but another one that has helped me a lot, which again, I was taught the opposite. Most of us were taught the opposite, is following your highest excitement, you know, and it can be something so simple you can practice, like, do you want to go to this restaurant or this restaurant? It's like, oh, which one actually lights me up more, you know, and you follow that and you pursue that, you know, and that again is just strengthening that trust of self. And that's where a lot of people's suffering comes from, is just not knowing self, not knowing, what do I actually want to do? Because there's so many things that siphon our energy, that drain our attention, you know, and people are just cogs in the wheel and have no idea what passion feels like, have no idea what bliss feels like at all. And so I tell my clients, I'm like, just practice it in your daily life, little things like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Do the thing that most lights you up, you know, and that helps a lot. It doesn't mean we live a life completely without suffering, but it can help you to navigate and to find your flow and to find that path of least resistance that's authentic to you, you know. And again, most of us aren't taught that.
Really well put. Thank you for that. I've been watching some movies lately. Like I had a very like productive period the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I am a doer, you know. There's like all this stuff on being not doing, which I really honor and I appreciate, because it does seem like when the society's doing, we need to have a real sense of like a focus on being, and the Thich Nhat Hanh, you know, just the beauty in the sunflower, you know, and just, I love all of that. And, this doesn't discount that, but admittedly, like, I like to do things. Absolutely. I like to create. And, you know, my wife is very great about saying, like, she's like my don't burn out, like, counsel. And I honor that. And, but I've been kind of to your point, like I'm watching like Kung Fu movies right now.
Oh, cool.
Instead of like editing the thing or like writing, like now I'm editing 3 nights a week instead of 6, you know, like it's okay. You can watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon tonight.
Hell yeah.
You know, you went to work, you know, Bobby's in bed, the house is clean. Like you can do it, like watch that movie.
Sure. But I think too, what you're doing though, again, you're following your highest excitement.
Yeah.
Like, this feels good. this feels right. And so you're nurturing that. There is, that balance. That I'm the same. I'm massive, like, overworker, and to a fault.
But if you're excited, like, that's your thing. If you are excited about the work, then what, I even made I don't know if you and I talked about this. I told a few friends where I used to say, like, I'm working tonight, like to shift to my creative, because I have a day job. And now I say I'm being creative tonight. Like, just a tiny little thing instead of saying, like, yeah, I'm doing work tonight. Right. I'm not really doing work. I'm doing creative.
Absolutely. That little shift in perspective. You're just honoring yourself. You're on your path of least resistance. And, when it starts to feel draining, then that's when you're like, okay, maybe I need to pause and just be,
Go swim in a creek.
Yeah, exactly.
Highly recommend.
For sure.
Laurén, Janelle. We got Laurén Juniper.
Well, Laurén Juniper.
Oh, it's Laurén Juniper. Also, there's no I'm sorry, there's no accent on it. There is now.
Yeah, so Laurén Juniper, that was probably the first time that I decided to pursue something creative and also feel like something fruitful could come of it. And I shocked myself. I really shocked myself, because at first I was just like, oh, I just want to kind of make, candles that are part of my rituals. And so it was the first time I really dug deep and really poured everything into building a brand or whatever. And I shocked myself in that it got really good. It was received really well. It worked. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. It is possible.
I can make shit happen.
I can make it real,
That's an important realization to have.
Yeah.
After all these years.
And it was COVID. And I was 1,000% using my unemployment money to fund that business.
Good.
My little,
what it's for.
My little unemployment money, that's where it all went. I was like, fuck that. I'm not working right now. I'm going to build this brand. I'm going to build this business. I'm going to stay home and make candles. And so that was the first time. And I learned a lot.
Tell me just briefly. So that was candles and like scents and aromas that create environments for spiritual kind of contemplation and reflection that you had been using in your own practice.
So it was actually really based on like color energy and color magic. So I have like 2-tone candles, and they would represent a color energy, even, a chakra to work with at that time. And the idea was that, you burn the yellow and you meditate upon the yellow energy and happiness and joy and bliss. And then when it gets to the pink,
that's such a fun idea.
So it was based very much on color, energy, and that sort of work.
Bobby would love that.
Yeah, it's great. It's now at the point of like, who's making 500 candles? Because I got time for that.
Yeah, you need a team.
I'm trying to figure it out, Bob.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm learning. I don't know, because even building the company, LLC, all that, I was completely self-taught, and now I'm like, okay, it's a good problem to have, but like, this is not sustainable.
Right.
It's almost like, it's sad. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, I almost dread getting the word. But it's cool, because I'm like, oh, shit's selling. That's awesome. You know, and I'm really grateful.
New problem though.
It's a new problem.
That's interesting.
Like,
and you're doing a lot of great work with your consulting and your coaching stuff, right? And so you're kind of like, you had all these milestones, but
I'm kind of split a little bit, but it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have, and I kind of feel I'm at that point of like, okay, I know I'm expanding and scaling, but how? So But no, it's good. I feel really thankful. The products are in LA, Oakland, Manhattan, Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's cool. It's doing its thing.
It's a lot of cities.
It's its own little entity. It's doing its thing.
That's amazing.
It took some hard work. But I feel...
So if anyone's listening and like they're sitting on some idea that they don't think they can do...
It's more than possible.
You can.
It's more than possible. If you're excited about it, if it feels good, just nurture it. That's the other thing too, is that we haven't been taught how to nurture our creativity. We have so many things just taking our attention. And so... it's a good practice, too, in just being dedicated to something, being committed to something, deciding to nurture something that does feel good to you and not let it just be a fleeting sort of thing, and learning how to be grounded in that way.
Is that Jung, who's like, your greatest fear is where your work is? I mean, it's kind of a common psychological, spiritual idea, but, it's like if you have a big hesitation or a big blocker, about something, well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, you know what to
go
zero
for.
in on. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Transmuting those fears to opportunities for sure. And I think what's been kind of cool about just spiritual entrepreneurship is that you just learn so much about yourself. And that's really what is so important to me, is that you just learn these tools and you learn these skill sets around honoring yourself, surrendering to the divine when you need to, learning how to nurture things that fulfill you. And that's what it really comes down to. It's not really about, about it. Being on the shelves is cool, absolutely. But entrepreneurship, one of the greatest things that's taught me is just faith, Any entrepreneur has to learn massive faith in themselves. I can remember when I was delivering fucking pizzas with like $10, but also still had to get candles to the store. I'd be like crying, using my last money to like ship off fucking candles.
Wow.
And being like, nope, okay. And that's what
working.
The sort of cheesy, it's all working in my favor stuff comes in. But that practice, learning that then on a small level, I know is just, helping for the bigger.
It's a beautiful image. I mean, didn't Mark Cuban sleep in a car? I mean, it's a lot of people who are like massively successful went
through it.
Tough times. I had about 9 bad jobs in my day. So I was cold calling and waiting tables. And I graduated with 2 degrees and I was still a to-go server.
That's the
I was like, can I get a section?
That's the American. You're living the modern day.
I have 2 bachelors now. They're like, well, you're really good on the phone. So
right.
I don't think so, Bob.
I graduated and was doing...
You could take 11.
Yeah. I graduated and next thing you know, I'm doing Starbucks drive-thru. That's the American dream. And that's, again, all those illusions just crashing down. But it takes a really unique individual to persevere through that.
Yeah.
And still hold that vision and still have that faith within, yourself and within the divine. It takes a really unique person.
I'll be vulnerable with you about this. Because I kind of do like to say, like, I was a starving artist for like 8 years as a filmmaker. And I kind of say it with like a grin, like I am a little bit proud of it, and it's making documentaries that, were serious religious films that nobody wanted to watch, and but they hold up, and my mom liked them, and now I'm kind of entering into a space of like putting the book out, putting like material relevant to all this stuff. I've been saying the same thing for 15 years. The films are the same type of content, but starting to release that image of the starving artist thing, and like seeing people like you, like James, like Aubrey, like people that are full-time and like, successful creative people living their lives. And it's because I've always kind of been like day job and creative. And so, it's like what's underneath there a little bit for me. Like, it's like if there is something subconscious that's
yes and no.
holding that.
I don't know. Yes and no, because...
Or it's a slow erosion,
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes, you never know. You may need to be that person at your day job that is,
That's true.
A lot of times Spirit has us where we are for a reason, just... share your amazing energy and being that beacon, and not in like a egotistical, like I'm the beacon on the light type thing. But, sometimes having spiritual people in those areas, Spirit wants that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
That's beautiful. That's true. When you zoom out enough, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Always.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. I think I had it was like a TikTok or something. It was like, I'm looking for the beloved in Outlook. Can you see the Divine Mother on the conference call?
Right. And that's the thing too. And that's why sometimes I even tell my creatives, your purpose doesn't have to be this huge, monumental, groundbreaking thing. Because again, that's still ego.
Right.
And we have to be careful of that, of like constantly, even in the manifestation community, I'm manifesting this thing, I'm attaining this thing. And it's like, but why do you want that?
Sure.
Just you're chilling, be at peace where you are.
I think is like revolutionary and like mostly positive as The Secret was, which you mentioned earlier as an early inspo. That's a great example. It was the early book that you read that helped you get into all this stuff. you know, you just brought that up. That was kind of an issue. One of the issues, probably the best criticism of that whole scene is like the cut scene of the car.
Yeah.
You know, and the cut scene of the thing. And it's like, yes, you can just create anything out of thin air eventually if you do this type of work. However, what do you really want that? Are you really serving yourself and others? Are they golden handcuffs in a sense?
And it's not going to last forever either.
Right.
You can manifest that car, you can manifest the mansion, whatever.
Yeah.
But operating from that place, the divine is still going to find a way to sit your ass down and make you come back to reality. And, you know, and that's something I've had to watch out for, and I try to be mindful of, because I am definitely a manifestation girly for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it really came from a place of like survival, you know, doing the DoorDash. But
and there's a socioeconomic validity in it also.
Sure. And, you know, we could talk about that all day too. But it's about just healthy skepticism with everything. You know, it's the dangling carrot of like, oh, you manifest your reality. You can create your dream life. Okay, but how much of that is like rooted in your ego, and how much of that is rooted from still like running away from the divine and seeking the worldly pleasures that are, you know, ephemeral. They're transient. They're not going to stay, you know. And a lot of manifestation, I've had so many people, you know, come to me like, I've been manifesting, I'm trying, and I'm working. I'm like, I'm feeling a lot of like yearning with the word manifestation on top. And that doesn't feel great. You know, how about you need nothing? You're chilling. You have everything you need, you know? I think for me.
And that's paradoxically the energy that brings the things to you.
Exactly. By needing nothing, you know, you have everything. I think for me, manifestation is not so much anymore about, oh, I'm going to have that thing. But now it's so much more about, wow, I have this tool where my reality can show me where I'm vibrating at. And that's pretty fucking cool, you know, and using it in that way, and allowing it to help me to continue to be more in flow and more in trust and more in faith, and more in bliss, you know.
Wait, you don't have any Instagram reels in front of Lambos yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
That's next year's content strategy.
That's so icky. But so many people fall for it.
Well, but you just articulated it very well, unsurprisingly to me, who's known you for a while, that distinction, because I think there is, you know, kind of, and I'm admittedly, like, I'm super interested in it. I like Abraham Hicks a lot. I'm a big fan of Esther and her channel, her intuitive work, and you know, they've inspired me, and also kind of like you know, even just the term New Age, which I feel like, disclaimer, everyone, I am actually. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people say, like, what's funny to me about the term New Age is it's almost always pejorative. It's almost always how New Age,
right?
You know,
really condescending.
And it's like, wait, isn't everyone kind of like, if only we could all step into this new world where we all had a collective view of appreciating each other and appreciating the planet, kind of like a new era or something, or some new, I don't know, some new age where we could all be at peace and a harmony. Like, I think the worst thing about New Age is cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
That's not good. I'm much more a fan of cultural recognition and reverence, which we can talk about too. But, you know, you're in that similar space as me in terms of like New Age and mysticism, and kind of trying to validate it against some of the cultural critiques now, you know, that you're seeing the manifestation scene getting, in terms of people saying, oh, it's too hedonistic. Well, you just called that out.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's a shift from obtaining things, obtaining riches, to this is mirror land.
Yeah.
And it's showing you exactly where you're at, and you're helping people do this. You're helping people come out of tough situations. Continuing this into the earlier point around mystic surrender, like, there's a service element.
Right. 1000%. Yeah. It's kind of funny. When I first started my coaching, it was very much, because I was still coming from that corporate landscape, I was a social media manager almost 10 years and whatnot. And, everyone wants to go viral and, the energy work. And when I first started out, that's kind of where I was because I knew the algorithm. I knew how to make content. I knew manifestation. And then real quickly, I was like, wait, this is not feeling it at all, and
you were perceptive enough to see its traps early.
It just wasn't the people. Well, how do I say this right?
In as least an egoic way as possible.
Yeah, I could see the allure
Mm-hmm.
and the people it was drawing in, and I was like, wait, but I don't think this is actually what I'm trying to do, and I end up kind of making there's kind of levels. So there's like the cosmic baddie where, yes, we nurture your heart-led, soul-led business. And a lot of it is grounded strategy because a lot of the girls don't have a master's, didn't study marketing, don't know anything about how to edit a video. So there's like the basics of that. And we do energy work and believing in yourself in that. But now there's like a tier once you finish that where it's like, well, none of it's real. Just so you know, It's not real. And I just don't want people to get on that hamster wheel because you can so quickly, it becomes capitalism repackaged, as spirituality. And that is not going to end well. Like I said, you will get sat down real quick,
That's really beautiful that you have the multi-layered aspect of this. I think a lot of people almost no, I mean, I'm not familiar with many programs like what you're doing in terms of people saying, not only here's your brand help and your entrepreneurial coaching, and also your spiritual, you're also doing, manifest kind of abundance, all of that.
Yeah.
Some people are doing that, but then but not many. But then you have this other layer to say, by the way.
Yeah. It's not real.
It's all sand going through the fingers.
None of it's fucking real. I don't want you. Love it. It's cool.
Yeah.
And I think I have you to thank for that, introducing me to Disappearance of the Universe and introducing me to pure non-dualism, where my fucking ego was like, oh, bitch, it ain't real. It's not real, girl.
My pleasure. I'll gladly take my title as Billboard.
Thanks to you.
Exit 295.
Holding that book and crying in sleep. Beautiful cries.
That was the same thing. I mean, my Apache teacher said you should read this book, in 2010. So that's a big part of my work is telling people to read Disappearance of the Universe. And to your point, pure non-duality. So let's go there for a little bit. Okay. So you have duality. To pure non-duality, right? Yeah. You have a spectrum, and spiritual paths are kind of anywhere on that. You have monistic or dualistic, like patriarchal religion is like the most dualistic. God is out there,
right?
And we're down here. And we worship outside of us.
Go down to that.
Yeah, and that's where some people are, and everybody's where they need to be. And then as you kind of study the different spiritual paths and really, again, back to me, my redundancy here on the world mystic traditions, the mystics get more and more non-dual, right? And so that was it. This was all an important realization for you because you got to see through that there was some dualistic elements to what you're doing. And then you said, wait a second, the focus was on it too much.
For sure. It's, that saying like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, sure.
And that's definitely what that book did to me. And I really needed that, because it is one thing, yes, to follow your highest excitement, to nurture your desires. But then you have to be careful because it can really quickly become egoic. And I think what Disappearance of the Universe did for me, like, shook me to my fucking core. Fully snatched my edges when it was like talking about all of these spiritual modalities that I love so much, astrology and the numerology. It's all a creation of ego, when ego's separated. I mean, I love you.
It's real in the dream.
It's real in the dream.
Right. Which is kind of a paradox of a sentence.
Yeah.
But, even I think in if anyone's interested in this, A Course in Miracles and Disappearance of the Universe are really kind of what we're basing some of these ideas from. A Course in Miracles, at the end of it, it has Manual for Teachers, which have you been scrolling through that?
I'm not near.
You're not there?
No,
I mean,
time.
It's not a speed read.
No.
You can study this thing for incarnations, right? Just like any good scripture. Manual for Teachers has a question. It's kind of like a Q&A. It's like a FAQs at the end.
Necessary.
It is.
Necessary.
And, it even said, and just a quick side note, I don't consider myself a teacher, by the way. I've accepted writer and philosopher.
Okay.
I'm good with those two.
Guide in there.
I
think you can take
I like
that
Billboard.
Okay, we'll go with
But somebody the other day was like, I love your teachings. I was like, oh, no. Writings or philosophical ramblings. I'll take that.
I think it's okay to be a guide. I think you can own that a little bit.
I'll work on that with you in your coaching program. But at the very beginning, it says the teacher of God is the only definition for a teacher of God is someone who sees the benefit. I'm paraphrasing the benefit and advancement of other beings is intertwined with your own self. And I'm like, okay, well then I do see that. Isn't that nice? One of the questions it says like, what's the deal with reincarnation? And it basically says the only question that you should ask about reincarnation is it useful?
Oh, is it useful?
Is it useful? If it's useful to you in your understanding and awareness of how this all works, great. If it's not, if you're very obsessed with the fact that you think you were Benjamin Franklin,
right,
and Cleopatra, and it's like, because the ego can snag on to any of this,
any of it. Yeah, that's a huge thing in spirituality too. People love finding out they had an Egyptian lifetime or the star seeds and all of that. And
and it's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, but it's easy to get caught.
Cling on to that to like make yourself feel worthy and better than,
right.
And I'm not trying to keep coming back to this place, even if I am fucking Cleopatra.
There's a sad irony of like studying your past lives and being stuck in the past.
1,000%. 1,000%.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about your history, some milestones, some influences in terms of concepts. I have a couple of books here. This is Disappearance, which I've become a commercial for, living commercial. But also this guy, Yogananda. And most people are familiar with Paramahansa Yogananda by his masterpiece of his autobiography, which has sold millions of copies, has influenced the world. But a lot of people don't know that he wrote a lot of books. He was just this walking vessel of spirit who dedicated his life and, sincere bow and deep reverence for his prolific, just constant state of getting people to the divine in themselves, in everything and everyone. We're all really indebted to him, especially Americans, because he was the first Swami to basically live the majority of his life in America. And died.
I didn't know that.
He died in Los Angeles in the early 50s. And and he got here in 1920 in Boston. So we just celebrated his centennial arrival in America a few years ago. Amazing. And so, he wrote, this is a book called The Law of Success. He wrote a book called The Second Coming of Christ, which I reference in my book and my work as a yoga Swami who loved Jesus. But Law of Success was useful for you kind of in some of the conversation we were having earlier around it's okay to be successful. It's like when you first step into non-duality, the concept of not two, there's only one, really like hedonism is overrated.
Exactly.
You're not going to find peace in the Lambos. But tell me more about kind of what the Law of Success did for you and kind of how it shifted your perspective.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, first reading Disappearance, and that was the first time I was introduced to A Course in Miracles, and it's just a massive fucking ego death. Everything you thought you knew. It's really, I would recommend it really, you know, thank you, Bob, for sending me that book, because I would really recommend that to anyone working in the spiritual field, because it's so easy to think you've got it. Oh, I've discovered how this works. And again, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And what stumbling upon pure non-dualism did to me, I mean, I felt paralyzed for a while.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to act, how to move, because you're questioning everything that you're experiencing. And then you do go through that renunciation phase. You know, you want to reject the worldly things and all of that. And then that also can become a dangling carrot in terms of like, this world has nothing for you, which yes, but then the ego wants to take that and then continue further its separation by renunciating everything or renouncing everything. I mean,
right.
And so I felt paralyzed and I felt a lot of shame. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, like I've been doing it all wrong.
Which is ironic because the core teaching of A Course in Miracles is non-judgment and forgiveness and getting rid of guilt. And yet here it comes.
It's such a balancing act. It's such a balancing act to practice like self-awareness around how you're still an ego and not judging how you've been an ego, because it's damn near fucking impossible. If you're here on earth, you have an addiction to ego, you know, and that maybe it's like my Capricorn stellium that's just so hard on my fucking self. Like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, it was a great opportunity to replay that narrative. But then you sending me The Law of Success and Yogananda helped a lot, because I was able to kind of ground in and see the joy of doing godly work or whatever, you know, just being able to understand what it is to be an instrument of the divine, how to take action in a way that's aligned with integrity, that's aligned with, you know, your own sacred way of kind of finding your way back home. And if you're able to help others do that along the way, then fuck yeah. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me.
Beautiful. He says, just as all power lies in his will, so all spiritual and material gifts flow from his boundless abundance. In order to receive his gifts, you must eradicate from your mind all thoughts of limitation and poverty. Universal mind is perfect and knows no lack. To reach that never-failing supply, you must maintain a consciousness of abundance. Even when you do not know where the next dollar is coming from, you should refuse to be apprehensive. When you do your part and rely on God to do his, you will find that mysterious forces come to your aid and that your constructive wishes soon materialize. This confidence and consciousness of abundance are attained through meditation.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Such a powerful understanding of abundance and what that truly means. And even, you know, from the other book that you recommended, Women of Power and Grace, one that really stuck out to me, Frances Cabrini.
Yes.
And, you know, she was this amazing nun, but she was also, you know, going out in the world and building these orphanages. And she had an abundance mindset. You know, she was experiencing miracles and I really love that. And it also, once again, really made me check my ego in very nuanced ways that I try not to be hard on myself about. But there was a quick mention of the egoic practice of affirmations, which can quickly become, you know, again, like I must say my affirmations, or I'm constantly calling in that energy. And it's like, no, there's also that level of just being, embodying, fully being someone of abundance, you know, really accepting your wholeness and then experiencing miracles in that way. You know, and for me, that's something I try my best to embody in terms
You're doing great.
Thank you. But just in terms of being, I'm good.
Her nuns would be like, no, there's no money. Like
we don't have anything.
We don't have any money right now. And she's like, no, there needs to be a hospital here.
Right.
And I've been praying to the Sacred Heart for 36 hours. And don't you worry, you know. And then some guy walks in and has, you know, the briefcase, and I was told to come here, and you know, the stories of the saints, you know, the lives of all these mystics, men and women throughout history. But in particular, what we're talking about is women of power and grace. which I didn't bring today, but hang out with me long enough and you'll get some book recommendations.
You'll get all the books, y'all. Y'all have at least 3 now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And these women, Mother Frances Cabrini was an Italian immigrant to America, and so inspiring. I mean, they, and maybe we could talk about this for a little bit. We were talking about the action in the world and kind of service in the world. I think non-duality, there's a misconception about it that it's just sitting on the cushion, that it's all your mind anyway. Solipsism is a term for that in psychology, about like, oh, I made this all up so none of it matters. And like, there is some truth to that. Of course, Miracle says this world holds nothing that I want. I think it's lesson 126. But at the same time, it doesn't mean from apathy, or at least that's my interpretation. Because when you are living from a place of this level of cosmic unity, you want to act, you want to support other people, you want to, defend the vulnerable, you want to feed the hungry. And that's what they all say. I mean, that Jesus is quite clear in the Gospels that you went and visited me in prison. You went and fed me when I was hungry. Yeah. And they say, what are you talking about? A lot of the Jesus conversations, the disciples are going, what do you mean by that? We didn't visit you in prison. And he says, what you do for the least of these, you do for me. Yes, absolutely. Because he had that realization of, honestly, it's almost like capital E empathy. It's like that level of unity consciousness sees yourself in every being. And that's Thich Nhat Hanh too. Yogananda. I mean, all these guys and gals say this. It's like, when you have that connectivity, why wouldn't you act on it? Why wouldn't you be an engine for good? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really all comes back to that. I mean, I've been saying, and I've learned this, and it was something I've never experienced before, but like one of the top tier levels of feeling of abundance is being in service. There's really like nothing comes close to the best drug. It is. You know what I mean? You keep coming back to that, and it really also, not to say that you should do things in service, because it will then support you, not necessarily from that perspective, but at the same time, we kind of can say in terms of, I mean, what I like to tell a lot of the coaches and people I work with is like, if you're so worried about how you're going to be taken care of and this, that, take your mind off that and instead give, give even when you feel like you have nothing. And you'll see how when you're in service, then everything you have is provided for you. You don't even have to worry about that, Can you share a story of one of your students or clients around that was in kind of a lack mindset that they had a breakthrough? Or, I mean, you can also use anonymous names, but when you work with people in that one-on-one basis, which by the way, I don't do. The one-on-one with that I do is with myself, with my son. As you should. My son is the only person that gets my work out here. I think consultations. You're good. Thank you. But it's a profound line of work when you get to really understand someone's story, their blockers, Yeah. You've sent me a couple of, I know you have testimonials of gals on your site that I'm trying to think, because I don't know if it's like these massive, again, like groundbreaking, I did this and the skies parted and I was given everything. It's really like these really, you don't have a good before and after infomercial for yourself right now? I don't think I do. No, you've just seen it happen. I think, well, that's kind of the beauty of it, is that it's just subtle mindset shifts that sometimes just creates like an internal joy and an internal remembrance. That's really cool. Yeah. And you see people, because all of these things we talk about, we know on a soul level. And that's what I love about Disappearance of the Universe. It talks about, it kind of says, whenever you get this book, is you were ready to receive it. And a lot of it, you may feel like, oh, I kind of did already know that, but this matrix system, whatever the fuck you want to call it, illusion distracts us from that and we forget. So it's just that remembering. So I don't know if I have any massive, like groundbreaking before and after type things. It's just the beauty of those little subtle shifts and those little subtle remembrances, and just seeing people
return back to their peace. That's what's so cool.
That's beautiful.
You know, and I think people do sometimes think it's going to be this, oh, boom, I become this thing. Hell yeah, I'm that bitch.
yeah.
It's like, it's just that peace and like.
You were always that bitch.
You were always that bitch. And to be that bitch, as I always say, is just recognize that everybody else is that bitch. Everybody else is that girl. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, that peace of mind. That's really what it is. It's the nuanced subtleties of people realizing that everything's good. It's that simple. It's that simple. It's not this massive breakthrough. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have that as an example.
No, that's great. No, whenever you come back,
maybe then.
we'll talk about it. The student. Yeah, I love what you said too about remembering. You know, I think that's a key component of mystic philosophy is the remembering. You know, it's like we all have amnesia,
Right.
basically.
Yep.
And kind of to come back to the original sin is a lie. You know, what does that mean? That just means that, actually, I was on a podcast and I was mentioning about how this guy said, yeah, he said, original sin is not a lie. Have you met a person? Which is funny because we're not all perfect right now, you know, whatever, in the relative reality of the dream world. But really all it means is we're just ignorant of ourselves. We're just ignorant of our true nature is kind of the Hindu and, you know, Eastern mystic philosophy is it's all inside you. Vivekananda says it is us who put our hands over our eyes and cry that it's dark.
Yeah, the ego has a massive attachment to suffering. And that's one of the things I get a lot of slack for. Because my whole thing is that it's not necessarily toxic positivity, because I'm very aware. And when I do talk about the suffering in the world, that shit don't get no numbers, you know?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But my whole thing is that at your core, you are wholeness, you are abundance, you are bliss. So how can you find ways to come back to that experience? That's what I'm saying. How are you also finding ways to find suffering or to repeat that amazing victimhood narrative that serves you, that makes you feel special, that makes you feel like everyone in the world is out to get you? And even in the spiritual community, that's a big thing I see too. A lot of people are like, I feel so high vibrational. I don't relate to anybody. I'm like, well, that's not high vibrational. You know,
right.
To be the cliche term high vibrational means you are everybody, babes, you know, and that you see yourself in everyone and community, connectedness, you know, and that's a really easy trap to fall into. I think, you know, a lot of us who had our spiritual awakenings, you know, later in life or didn't grow up in that, it's so easy because you feel like a black sheep when you're younger. And so then you discover spirituality and now you're still the black sheep. And then you carry that as a badge. And that's not it. You know, that's not it. And that's when the unity consciousness comes in and abundance from that.
Just another chapter.
Yeah.
Just another chapter in the novel.
I'm like, you'll move past that. It's okay.
Well, a lot of people too that I think comment on my stuff say like, thank you for saying this because now I feel like I'm not alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, there are other crazy mystics out here. You found us. If you're listening to the show,
you're
not alone.
Yeah, and it is I'm not diminishing that either because it is a very real experience. We're really blessed and lucky to have such great spiritual community in Austin. I know for me, it's the first time, you know, speaking of like manifesting and reality mirroring things, that's when you know, for me, it's been a new era and like, oh, what a fucking blessing to be around like genuine, heart-led, soul-led community. That's great. And I never had that before. So I do empathize with that. So I'm not, you know, diminishing it because it's very
community is important.
It's so important.
The three jewels of Buddhism are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is the teacher. The Dharma is the teaching, the responsibility of the student, and the Sangha is the community. Yeah. And it's called fellowship in Christianity. You know, it's there are positives to religion, says the author of Original Sin is a Lie. Like, there are useful frameworks and not all religion is bad. And in fact, you know, kind of coming back to like Mother Frances Cabrini, you know, there are some of the most awakened souls on the planet that have been Christian.
Oh, yeah.
and unawakened, and most barbaric, and that's true for every path.
Yeah.
Same with when I was young, I read about this in my book, but I was reading a lot of Indian philosophy, eating up Yogananda. And I remember being like, Hinduism is the thing.
That's
like
it.
That was,
That's
this
my
is mid-20s,
ticket.
Bob.
Yeah.
And I drove past, I would go to the Kriya Yoga Center, which is out in Dripping Springs, and I would drive past a temple, a Hindu temple, which they're pretty rare in Texas.
Yeah.
There's not too many. There's
I'm
a
like, where
few
was
now.
this?
There's a few in Austin, yeah. But it was a beautiful temple. I remember specifically one time I parked and walked around out there, and I was really hoping to get a vision or see Krishna in the crowd. I really was like, and I remember being frustrated because I felt nothing. I couldn't even meditate. It was tangible. And a few years later, it came out that the head of that temple, which used to be called Barsana Dham, was abusing women and even young girls.
Shit.
And it was kind of like the Catholic priests that were doing that. And he actually was, he was subpoenaed. He went to court. He escaped the country. He left, he went to Mexico, and then he's in India somewhere. He's on an FBI list, I'm pretty sure. And that was, it's terrible and it's awful that happens. But people also need to be aware of it. It's like all of these religions, spiritual paths, from New Age to traditional religion, there are people that use that power in an egoic way.
Yeah.
While at the same time, there are also people that are authentic and, which, so it was useful for me to see that, oh, wait, actually, no, Hinduism has the same,
everywhere.
challenges that everything has. Yeah.
Luckily, Pluto and Aquarius going to bring all that shit down. We're going to just watch more of the crumbling.
See, we haven't talked about astrology at
Yeah,
all.
we haven't
All we
done
did
it.
was you digged on it earlier.
Wait, give us your big three, Bob. Give us, do you know okay. I know that you are the Cancer, Sun, Gemini cusp.
Right.
Scorpio rising.
Yeah, that's all I know.
Oh, God.
My wife knows everything about my...
Give us the moon sign. All right.
I mean, I can look it up.
That's okay. You don't have to.
No, but it's interesting, and for those who don't know, Laurén is an amazing astrologer. We've actually been at a bar, and she has diagnosed people's zodiacs, and also you can calculate off the top.
It's girl math. It's girl math, Bob. Astrology,
That's
girl.
hilarious.
I failed math and at Baylor, but I could.
But you're like, it's how this house is this. Yeah.
Yeah, 60 degrees, first degree, Jupiter, karmic, whatever bullshit. Yeah.
My wife is also very, very sophisticated astrologer, and
Awesome.
I backed out a biography of a yogi, which I have. Again, this is all I do is talk about other books, but
I love it.
there's a moment in his story where he's in the ashram with Sri Yukteswar, who's his guru back in India before he comes to America. And when he's a young boy, he's teens or something, preteens, and the master tells him, he says, Mukunda, I think was his birth name. He says, Mukunda, you need to buy an iron bangle. You need to go to the market and buy one.
Okay.
And he says, what are you talking about? That's crazy. And he says, it's in your chart that you will get an illness in the next few months. And he says, if you're wearing the iron bangle, it'll only be about a month. If you're not wearing it, it could be up to a year.
Oh, shit.
And he goes, I don't believe in that. And then Sri Yukteswar goes on, it's about 2 or 3 pages. I think it's chapter 16, Outwitting the Stars. Again, this is my math, I guess. And it's one of the most sophisticated explanations of astrology.
Okay.
And it's done so in a way where, I'm paraphrasing here, but, you can Google it, Sri Yukteswar, Outwitting the Stars. And he explains how he says, when the student says, well, I don't believe that. He says, gravity was still going on before Newton discovered it. You don't need to believe in cosmic physical laws for them to operate. He basically says these celestial bodies are so large, we've seen the space class, science class illustrations of how big these things are, but we really can't comprehend how long. I mean, they're so much even bigger. A few of these planets obviously are way bigger than the Earth. The sun is massive, and the moon is pretty close to us. And so when they move around,
you gonna feel that shit.
They're moving energy. They're moving massive amounts of energy, and we're ants.
We're ants, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, astrology is just one modality that's sort of a tool. And even then I catch myself, because it can very quickly become a crutch and the center of your world. And you have to be careful, And so it's very much just a tool. And so for me, what I really like is using astrology to understand the archetypes. And there's some deep lessons you can learn in astrology that a lot of people, again, don't like to talk about because it's not the as fun shit. For example, like the 12th house in astrology, where I happen to have a lot of placements, that's the house of loss, of self-undoing, of suffering. But it's also the house of like spiritual ascension, after the 12th house, after you've understood, letting go of your suffering, understanding the impermanence of life and all of these things, which I really like because I like to pair that with a lot of the Buddhist teachings. People don't like to talk about those things within
the hard stuff.
The hard stuff. But there's little nuggets there that
it's just like, when am I going to get a raise?
When am I manifesting the $1,000?
Yeah.
But these are things that once you really learn how to integrate them into your life can really help with the flow, and again, finding that path of least resistance. And it's really understanding these archetypes that exist within this world. That's really what it is for me, I think, at its core.
Well said. Yeah. Do you mind if I read some of it?
No, yeah, let's hear it.
Mukunda, why don't you get an astrological armlet? Should I master? I don't believe in astrology. It is never a question of belief. The only scientific attitude one can take on in any subject is whether it is true. The law of gravitation worked as efficiently before Newton as after him. The cosmos would be fairly chaotic if its laws could not operate without the sanction of human belief. He says, charlatans have brought the stellar science to its present state of disrepute. This is in 1910. Astrology is too vast, both mathematically and philosophically, to be rightly grasped, except by humans of profound understanding. If ignoramuses misread the heavens and see there as a scrawl instead of a script, that is to be expected in this imperfect world. One should not dismiss the wisdom with the wise. Couple more here. He says, all parts of creation are linked together and interchange their influences. The balanced rhythm of the universe is rooted in reciprocity, my guru continued. Man, in his human aspect, has to combat two sets of forces. First, the tumults within his being, caused by the admixture of earth, water, fire, air, and ethereal elements. Second, the outer, disintegrating powers of nature. So long as man struggles with his mortality, he is affected by the myriad mutations of heaven and earth. Astrology is the study of man's response to planetary stimuli.
There we go.
The stars have no conscious benevolence or animosity. They merely send forth positive and negative radiations. Of themselves, these do not help or harm humanity, but offer a lawful channel for the outward operation of cause-effect equilibriums which each human has set into motion in the past. It goes on a little more about birth charts and kind of where you're born, why that has significance. The last piece here, which I think you'll love, he says, superstitious awe of astrology makes one an automaton, slavishly dependent on mechanical guidance. Right. The wise man defeats his planets, which is to say his past, by transferring his allegiance from the creation to the creator. The more he realizes his unity with spirit, the less he can be dominated by matter. The soul is ever free. It is deathless because birthless. It cannot be regimented by stars.
Damn. Mike fucking dropped.
Sri Yukteswar Giri, deep bow.
Shit.
So that was Yogananda's guru. Ooh. And, a lot of what Yogananda does and Sri Yukteswar, his guru, both in that book, is they myth bust.
Yeah.
Which I really love. And I think it's something you do so well. And what I try to do is people have ideas about this stuff. And, to your point earlier, there's nuance. There's nuance to the ego judgment. Is it judgment or is it discipline?
Right.
Is it intention or will or habitual. There's a lot of nuance to this stuff, and what Yogananda does so well. When he was a little boy, for example, he had this insane drive to go to the Himalayas. Mm-hmm. He was from another part of India that's the flatlands, but he just was obsessed with being that's what he knew, the Himalayan yogis. That's where he wanted to go his whole life as a boy. And he finally meets another saint who's not his guru, and the saint says something like, your guru, you will meet your guru. He's a man, not a mountain. And it kind of helped fix that false belief that he had. And I think it's because he was a Himalayan yogi in a past life, and so he was drawn to that. But there's a lot of kind of myth busting to be done in this space. And so I really, I rely on my own intuition about it in terms of my interpretations, but I like to cite my sources.
No, that's so good. I love when it was saying, all things of creation are intertwined, and that's when astrology can become a really good tool. For me, it's like checking the weather. I have my favorite astrologers. I'm like, okay, what's the tea today?
Exactly. But do I need a raincoat?
Exactly. You're just checking the daily forecast, and times when it's especially a little stormy, eclipse season, Mercury retrograde, all that craziness.
Well, I know we're recording the day before the eclipse, but it's going to come out.
How's your eclipse season been?
A little while.
Has it been steady?
It's been pretty chaotic, to be honest.
I would say this one is nuts. And what's kind of interesting about it too? It's directly, and this is what's, again, the interconnectedness of it all. The eclipses, they all work together. So this one is directly connected to the one that was in October, which was right around the time of like Gaza and everything happening, which is interesting because there's Libra, which is justice and fairness and equality. And so it's bringing all this stuff to light, and
it's a closing of a cycle. In a sense. Yeah.
I'm kind of interested to see what's going to go on with America. I'm not so optimistic for America in this one.
Well, I am anti the U.S. military industrial complex.
Yeah.
I'm anti the U.S. prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
I have issues with this country, and also at the same time, I appreciate aspects of it.
Yeah.
And, an aspect of it sounds like I sound like a freaking red hat loving my freedoms. But what's funny? Some of us were, this was a couple of years ago, trashing, the government or whatever, which is sometimes you will hear from me. Depends on how much alcohol I have in my system, but this guy, he was from India actually, and he said he had been traveling the world at that time, and he said, you guys should know, like, you can say whatever you want here, pretty much, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
And he was like, I've been in a few countries where you cannot say
shit.
Some things.
Oh yeah.
And you will go to prison for saying stuff. And thankfully, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't. Because it's a pretty foundational component of this nation.
Blessing and a curse. I don't know.
It is a blessing and a curse. There's nuance.
You know what I mean? To be American. We have so many blessings, so many things, but so much of it is just so fucked, You can't even buy a fucking cup of coffee without thinking it might go to fund bombing of babies.
There's a lot of greed. There's a lot of corruption, and, that I'm pretty passionate pro-Palestine activist, and just immense amount of empathy and peace to the Palestinian people who are undergoing an absolutely horrific apocalypse right now.
Yeah.
That our government is cheerfully throwing more weapons into the mix.
You've done some work,
I made a film about Palestine, in 2018 to 2020 with a Palestinian American friend of mine, and I learned a lot. And it's, one of the, I think, to kind of not bypass the challenges of it, but my film does end on a positive note, because there are Israelis that love Palestinians, and there are Palestinians that love Israelis. And it's unfortunate that it's basically ethno-nationalism that is the issue, because that's the folks that are driving the red buttons. And, it's one of the things I think that comes up in the activist community as well, with a little bit of a spiritual angle to me, which is all struggles are connected.
Yeah.
There was actually, I was so inspired by Standing Rock a few years ago. If you recall the Native American protests of the Keystone Pipeline.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Remember that?
Yep. Yeah.
They, the U.S. Military folks were guarding the pipeline construction on the native land, and story as old as time. And Palestinians were tweeting at the natives on how to clean different foggers off and like practical tips on how to avoid. And it was, it's sad obviously in some ways because of the need to do that, but it was inspiring too, to say like, hey, if there's people suffering and struggling against empire, the solidarity across the boundaries is very real and tangible. And, I think there's, despite the chaos of what's going on across the Atlantic, I do think that there's a lot of awareness about the injustice of it, more so than I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's it's unignorable.
It's unignorable. And I'm really optimistic that there has to be a brighter future when it's been this dark.
It's gotten bad. It's all coming to a head. It's all coming up for us to look at it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of shadow work for the entire collective, for those willing, to look at all of this stuff and what can I do to help? What can't I do to help? What is this reflecting about all of us as one consciousness? And it says so much.
Sure.
I'd love your thoughts on him from a pure non-dualism perspective on.
Well, the pure non-dual perspective is that this is separation land, in terms of this plane of time and space. This plane of time and space, according to the non-dualist, which when we say non-dual and non-dualist, I'm talking about A Course in Miracles, that's the newest one. But the older ones are Advaita Vedanta, which is ancient Indian philosophy. The commentator, Shankaracharya, is from the 10th century, I believe. He was a medieval Indian sage who wrote commentaries on it. That's how old it is. Zen Buddhism is pretty non-dual, and aspects really of most mystical paths. And so, the world is a dream. Rumi talks a lot about that too, the dream-like world. And so there's not going to be a heaven here. That's impossible, essentially is the idea.
We're already in heaven.
Yeah, we're in heaven within. We're in a heaven in our oneness, in our love, in our connectivity. And, it does, again, it's a big theme for me, which is despite all of that there can't be a perfect, harmonious world, it doesn't mean we don't work to relieve suffering.
Right.
It doesn't mean we don't feed the hungry. Karma yoga, I write about this too in my book about Lord Krishna, who the Bhagavad Gita is an ancient Indian text that is, you could also take an incarnation to contemplate, and it's a short book too. It's Krishna and Arjuna talking a divine incarnation, an avatar to a man, and he talks about karma yoga. The name of the podcast is Karmic Relief.
Hello.
So it's appropriate. What Krishna says is essentially karma means action, and yoga means bliss of union. So it's the bliss of a union from inspired action.
Okay.
And what he says is there's two kind of things to avoid in terms of acting in the world. One is being the role, associating with the role. So being the do-gooder, I think one of the most obvious examples to most people culturally is the white dude in Haiti that goes to
spreading the good word,
posts on Facebook, And I'm not denying there's good white people in Haiti, by the way. No disrespect to white people in Haiti.
Get the fuck out. I'm just
I've never been to Haiti, so I haven't done any good there. But, the idea of like, look at me, look at this good I'm doing.
Right.
I think sometimes it's called white savior, where
pulling
it's
the
like,
camera out and giving the homeless man.
yeah, there's a lot of homeless content helping viral stuff now, which is,
Yeah, we love to see that.
yeah, and it can be inspiring and it can be
It's just performative.
right? And Christian says don't do that, and Jesus says don't do that. By the way, the avatars say the same thing. The other thing to avoid, he says, is expectation,
right?
And attachment to the outcome.
Exactly. No insistence on how it plays out.
Which plays back to yourself, because you can feed 1,000 people every day for the next 10 years, and the day after, when you say, I'm done, there's going to be hungry people.
Exactly.
The day after that.
Insistence on it creates suffering.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good advice, and at the same time, you still act.
Right.
You're not the do-gooder, and you're not attached to the fruits of the action, and yet,
Such a balance.
here we are. Yeah, here we are doing it. So
Such a balance.
it's like that process of doing it is actually the awakening. That's actually the undoing of the illusory.
Not needing some effect to satisfy your desire of the doing. It's just the act of the doing that brings all the beauty.
Right.
Yeah.
And both are alluring as hell.
Hell yeah.
Being the do-gooder and saying, look at my thing, or look at what we accomplished, etc. Yeah. So
I think Bashar.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah. Bashar, he talks a lot about that. I like him a lot.
I do too, yeah.
Yeah. And he says the formula is to act on your highest excitement to the best of your ability. Then to have no insistence or assumption on the outcome, and then to remain as positive as you can, therefore after.
The whole time.
Yeah, pretty much the whole time.
Throughout it all.
Yeah, and that's how you return back to your peace within all of that. And again, it comes back to just that joy of being in service, which, capitalism has done such a great job of making us forget that, because everything's about the dollar, it's about the achievement or whatever. And, just circling back, it really is the best feeling just to do something in service of others. And then every time you do that, not saying you should do it for this reason, but the universe has a really beautiful way of coming back around and making sure you're always going to be taken care of. I tell my clients and stuff all the time, the coaches and things, like, if you feel stuck, we talked about this, just, do something for someone and you'll see how you're good. You're going to be good regardless. Stop focusing on, it's the basics.
The lack, yeah.
But it's the basics.
And the blockers.
But it really is easier said than done. And it's something that takes continual practice that we're asked to do every single day and that we keep coming back to,
Sure. Yeah, there's a good Ram Dass story too, who's saying that, which is his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Ram Dass. We love you, you freaking smiling,
amazing cosmic being,
convert, emissary to the world. He goes, I ran into somebody who used to be all wearing white, and they were at all the gatherings, and they had flowers in their hair, and he said, I ran into them at a bar, and they're drinking, and just, it was all bullshit. And he goes, no, you're like, they fell off. And he goes, no, you can't fall off. This is part of it too.
Yeah.
It's the peaks and the valleys, and it happens over time. And if you zoom out on lifetimes, I mean, it can be hundreds or thousands of incarnations in the dream, in the time and space plane.
The only thing you have to free yourself of is the judgment of it. The judgment of it, just be. And that's one of my biggest things is just let yourself, we don't know how to just flow that path of least resistance. We're constantly, and even in the spiritual community, we have to be so careful of constantly needing to self-actualize and being on the hamster wheel of healing. That shit's fucking tiring, dude.
Yeah.
I'm trying to chill.
Yeah, watch the movie, again.
Watch
Crouching Tiger.
Yeah, and that's why I say your only job is just to witness your unfolding. That's it. Like, take your fucking hands off the wheel. The more you force that shit, your only job, follow your highest excitement, your passions, getting in tune with that sacral chakra, the passions and the desires to a degree. And your true desire is not the Lamborghini. That's not your true desire,
I'm sure they drive real nice.
I'm sure, yeah. The
For a
butterfly
time.
doors must be pretty cool for a little bit, but it's fleeting.
For a couple of years.
It's fleeting.
Yeah.
And it's such a fucking easy trap to fall into. And that's another thing. So many people I work with get like manifestation burnout. I'm doing everything. I'm like, why don't you just stop? Just like, how about you don't? And they're like, well, I came to you because you're all about manifestation. I'm like, yeah, but I'm also about just like chilling, like be at peace with yourself. Because that's also an act of manifestation. Everything is manifestation. You're constantly creating.
Right.
You're constantly creating. And even within the whole quantum jumping physics and, you know, all that fun stuff too, that's really trending is
We'll save that for another episode.
the next
to be honest.
episode, you know. But just learning how to slow down to speed up, you know. Or not even need to speed up. Just fucking be, you know. I think that's my favorite thing and the best thing that spirituality has done for me is that you don't have to become anyone. You don't have to do anything. You are, and it's so cliche, but you know, you're perfect and whole as you are. And like, that's the fucking cosmic joke. Let go of everything else that tells you otherwise. And that's the struggle. That's where you'll always experience suffering. And that's why I really admire Thich Nhat Hanh. He talks so much about redefining what you think brings you happiness, you know, and that's when you'll find your peace.
She's fantastic. Thank you so much for watching Karmic Relief Podcast with me, Bob Peck, and Laurén Janelle Green. All of her info is down below. Support her, follow her. She's up to a lot of wonderful things. I'm trying to release these every week. Wish me luck. I have a 4-year-old. I have a day job. I have a lovely wife and family. Trying to be a good member of the community. And I get to meet a lot of wonderful people through this, so it's worth it. The world is always in a state of chaos, it seems like. And that doesn't seem like it's changing. So all we can do is come back into center and try to really cultivate that sense of inner compassion deep within ourselves. I'm trying myself. I'm really digging deep as much as I can, as a flawed, drunken, wannabe bodhisattva can, and really trying to bring that compassion out into the world. May we all embody that as best as humanly and earthly possible. Thank you.